What is going on, you guys? Today I have a super quick episode. So, we're going to be reviewing a Diary of a CEO podcast where he interviews Navy SEAL Jocko Willing. That's the guy on the left here. And the episode title is How to Build a Routine You'll Actually Stick to. Let's get into it.
One of the things you do, which is, you're super famous for it, is this idea of waking up early. Now, I'm not someone that wakes up early.
I know you, no alarm clock, and you're usually up by 11.
So no meetings before 11.
Okay, got
so
it.
I stay up quite late.
Yep.
What's the best case you could give me for changing that? And do I need to change that? Because what I do is, I flew into LA, I'm jet lagged, I'm flying back in a couple of days, I'm going to be jet lagged when I land as well. So what I'm trying to do is just protect my sleep at all costs, because I've come to learn that it's really the foundation of my performance. So if I'm unslept and I show up at work, the chance that I'm not going to show up correctly in a variety of ways, emotionally, creatively, whatever, is high, and that for me is the greatest risk.
Yeah.
So I've in the last sort of year or two of my life, I've just said, okay, prioritize sleep, because then everything else seems to follow. But when I heard that you wake up sometimes at 4:45 or 4:30, like pretty much all the time, and I've literally seen you on social media upload your alarm clock day after day after day, I go, shit, maybe I should rethink.
No, I think...
Well, that's a good point that he brings up, because I think a lot of people, they're stubborn around like, no, bro, like I only need 4 hours of sleep. I've always done that. It's like, well, that's going to catch up to you. Like, it's going to show. Like, people are going to be able to tell that you look older, right? Sorry to say it, right? But like people are going to be able to tell that you look older. It's going to catch up with your health. It's going to affect you negatively in a lot of ways, like you said, like creatively, emotionally, through your productivity, like all these different things, like your overall health, your mindset, not being able to think as clearly, as much as you want to put your ego up and say, oh yeah, no, it's fine, bro. Like I've only ever needed like 4 to 6 hours of sleep. It's fine. Like he's right? So like getting to the point where you realize that you shouldn't be out like nothing good. There's a quote I heard is like nothing good happens after 10 p.m. And realistically, that's true, right? Like because oftentimes when people are doing stuff after 10, it's kind of like they're messing around too much, right? Like whatever sort of like form of escapism it is, it's some form, right? Rather than being asleep, getting up early so you can be more productive earlier on, right? Like, because truth be told, I mean, that's probably one reason he does it. The Jocko Willing is getting up early when no one else is up, so you have no distractions, right? You can have some time to yourself to actually think. No one talking to you, no emails, no music, no podcast, no nothing, right? So you can create the silence there because most people aren't up yet, right? So that's a big part of it. But also like you trust yourself more if you have consistency rather than your sleep schedule going all over the place. And one thing I think a lot of people don't realize is even if you get 8 hours of sleep, if you keep switching the time you go to bed, like let's say it's like something crazy, right? Like 4 a.m. to 12 p.m., right? Or a 12 to 8, right? Or 2 to 10, right? Like or 9 to 5, right? Like if you keep doing that, your body, you keep throwing off your biological clock, and your body's going to be like, whoa, bro, like what's going on? Like you're not going to feel as good as if you just consistently kept the same sleep schedule.
If you've got a system that's working well for you, and then I wouldn't change anything, right? If you feel like you're performing well, you're physically healthy, you're getting all the work done that you need to do, you're a naturally more of a late night, late morning type person, I'd run with it. If you were telling me, sometimes I get up, sometimes I don't, sometimes I work late, sometimes I don't work out every day, sometimes I feel groggy. If you were telling me that kind of thing, I'd say, okay, pick a time and start waking up at that time every day. It doesn't have to be 4:40, it could be 8 o'clock, could be 7 o'clock, doesn't matter. Could be 11 o'clock. But try and go to bed around the same time and try and wake up around the same time. And that's going to be a great foundation for everything that you're doing. And I would say when you wake up in the morning, do some kind of exercise, because I think that is very helpful in getting your day started correctly.
What are your non-negotiables in your life in terms of habits, routines, disciplines?
I wake up early and I work out every day. That's kind of those are the minimum requirements in my life. Train jiu-jitsu. I don't get to train jiu-jitsu every single day, but if I can train jiu-jitsu, I'm going to train jiu-jitsu. I'm going to work out every day. If I can surf, I'm going to surf. I obviously have to work every day. I work every day doing something. I've got a bunch of different companies. I got to write books, podcasts. So I work every day.
Are you ever undisciplined?
Oh, yeah. Chocolate chip cookies. Yep. they're a discipline lapse for me. So I'm not a cyborg.
Well, that's good that he says that, right? Like, even though he's like this, like, he's always got these motivational videos, like these, like, tough guy stuff. Like, again, he admits, like, not being a cyborg. Of course, it's best to stay true to your non-negotiables. Like, if you can avoid the chocolate chip cookies, do it. If you can avoid the alcohol, do it. I think it's more about the non-negotiables, like he's talking about, like making sure that you always get work done on your businesses. Or a better way of putting that is being, let's say you're like self-employed, right? You don't necessarily need to be able to be someone who starts like a big business. Literally, it's still a business if you're like mowing people's lawns, right? And you have no employees, it's just you, right? It's still a business, right? So that's something important for people to like notice. Like, maybe they don't want to be like a giant business owner, but maybe they want to be self-employed, like the one-man business or something like that, right? But these non-negotiables, right? Like, you're going to trust yourself more too if you always stay consistent, maybe with the time that you wake up. You always keep yourself from drinking, eating the wrong things. You always go to the gym every day, right? You always work on your self-employment or your business, your hustle, whatever it is you're doing, right? Like, the consistency is what's going to build the self-trust there.
When people look at someone like you, that's, done all the things you've done, you've been a SEAL and you've written all these books and started these companies, and actually the drink I'm drinking now is one of your products, which is what's that in front of you?
It's an energy drink called Go.
Called Go. Delicious, by the way.
Well, thank you.
I think my mouth has been connected to my brain during this interview, so I think it's working. I understand there's misconceptions that people have of me, because they assume, it's kind of like the halo effect. We assume because someone's done something well, they do all things well. But there are so many things that I think would really liberate people and make them inspired if they could see how deficient I was in so many things in my life. Because they just assume that if you've done one thing well, you have a good podcast, you must be like, the perfect picture of... What are the big misconceptions generally, moving away from this idea of imperfection, but just generally about Jocko? Because you realize you've become a bit of a character, right? Like Navy SEAL, that comes with an identity package.
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception, and it's not just me, but it's really the military in general, is the misconception of this kind of authoritarian and even authoritarian dictatorship from a leadership perspective. And even when we were having this conversation, I said, I'm gonna let my subordinates plan. And you kind of had a stunned look on your face, like, what are you talking about? Why would you let your subordinates plan? And so there's an idea and a misconception that the leader is gonna stand up and bark all the orders. So that's one misconception. Another one is I look like a Neanderthal, and so people think I'm going to scream and yell at everybody, and I never yell at anybody. My business partner Leif Babin, who's worked with me, who's in my task unit at SEAL Team 3 and deployed to Ramadi with me, and we've written a couple books together. We have a business together, and he was like my direct subordinate in Ramadi and during a workup, and like I never yelled at him. And he likes to point out that he gave me plenty of reasons to yell at him, but never yelled at him, because what good is that? And by the way, if I have to yell at somebody, what does that say? That means if I...
Well, again, like yelling or having like an emotional reaction really just shows that you're not like calm, in a positive state, and like masculine, right? I mean, like, it doesn't have to be a masculine or a feminine thing, right? But like the ability to control your emotions so that you're not getting emotional, like yelling at people, snapping at them, yelling at them, barking at them, whatever, right? Like you don't want to be doing that, right? And that's actually a great sign of a good listener, someone who's empathetic, compassionate, cares, and a good leader, right? Because like there's a huge difference. I've actually heard people who are like the leader or the supervisor, right? Like of a company or something like that, and I've heard them I've seen one actually get grossed out when one of his employers or employees called him their boss, right? He was like, whoa, like, don't call me that, right? Because boss, of course, we all think of the term like bossy, like getting bossed around. And I know people don't really think about it too deep sometimes, but like sometimes it's about the language you use, right? Like there's a difference between being bossy and being a good leader, 100%.
To yell at you to get my point across as a leader, I've made like 47 other mistakes.
Yeah.
My goal is I don't even have to say anything. That's my goal as a leader. My goal is I don't have to say a word, and you already know what to do, and you make it happen. And I look at you and give you a thumbs up and say, good job. That's my goal. So I think the biggest misconception is the idea of someone in the military or myself being a authoritarian leader, being very closed-minded. Like, I got asked a question the other day about, if China attacked Taiwan and you were taking troops in there, what would you be focused on? And I said, I'd be focused on keeping an open mind. Because if you have a closed mind about what the mission is, about how it's going to happen, about what your troops are going to do, about what the enemy's going to do, if you have a closed mind about those things, you're going to get caught off guard. You have to have an open mind. You have to be accepting of the information that you're receiving. You have to be accepting of the other ideas that other people have. And if you have a closed mind, you're going to fall apart.
Kind of counterintuitive in some ways, because the reason people often think they've been made the leader because they have loads of the correct ideas. So I think as people often climb in life, they go, well, I've been right so much that they've put me here as CEO, so now I need to defend my righteousness at all costs.
That's kind of a good point, right? Like you would assume that someone would need to be like really calculated, have a solid plan, etc. But I don't know if any of you have heard the saying before, but it's like God laughs at plans because he has a plan for you, basically, right? Like, and it's all unfolding in your best interest, right? It's all about you letting go of the subconscious resistance that you have, right? So like that would imply, sure, you could be like a good leader and calculated to some extent, but also being able to sort of pivot and be adaptable, right? Like you said, like being open-minded so you can see everything that's going on rather than like, this is the plan, but then what happens if it falls apart, right? What are you going to do then? Because like, life is happening for you, not to you.
Even when I'm not, sure, because that's a weakness.
Yeah. And you quoted Steve Jobs earlier, and I think actually it's from your book, which was, I don't hire people so I can tell them what to do. I hire good people so they can tell me what to do. So, yes.
Oh, I love that, because it's like not being egotistical as a leader, right? Like, again, being open-minded. Like, of course, there's something good to learn from this older person, this younger person, whatever their background is, right? Like, hiring them because they're a key player to the team, right? Or they can learn to be a key player, right? Like they're very coachable, right? So they can provide this extra level of value, right? So you can listen to them, like they're the one that's been doing that, been learning that, right? So like being open again, right? Like not letting the ego get in the way.
In a leadership position, you should be listening more than you should be talking.
If you love the Driver CEO brand,
And that's a good point at the end too, right? Like I don't know if any of you ever heard this. I'm just dropping like quotes throughout this whole video, but like you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Basically, it would benefit you to listen more rather than talk too much. So anyways, guys, with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. You got this, bro.